Welcome to the next video on compiler design. In this video, we are going to talk about how to construct operator precedence parser. So let us start. What are the steps? Ensure the grammar satisfies the prerequisite, meaning what? The grammar at hand is operator precedence grammar. Compute the functions leading and trailing. Using the computed leading and trailing, construct the operator precedence parsing table and then pass the string based on the algorithm for the parser. So let us start by computing leading and trailing. What exactly leading and trailing means? It is defined for every non-terminal. It is defined for each non-terminal such that terminals that can be the first terminal in a string derived from that non-terminal. Okay, so whatever terminal symbols are going to be the first terminal symbols derivable from that non-terminal is going to be kept in this set. Similarly, trailing for each non-terminal are those terminals that can be the last terminal in a string derived from that non-terminal. Okay, so let us look leading of A. A is what? A non-terminal. All such A, that is terminals, such that A derives in one or more step gamma A delta, where this gamma can be epsilon or a single non-terminal. Fine. So these symbols are going to be put in leading of A. Thus, leading A can be interpreted as looking for the first terminal from the left in the RHS of a production by applying all possible derivations for a production. Okay. Similarly, we can compute trailing of A where A is non-terminal. All such A such that A derives in one or more steps gamma A delta, where this delta can be epsilon or a single non-terminal. We are talking about last terminal symbols, so this can be epsilon or a single non-terminal. Thus, trailing interpretation is what? Looking for the first terminal from the right in the RHS of a production by applying all possible derivation for a production. So in the leading we are looking from the left, while in the trailing we are looking from the right. In both case, the first terminal symbols. So algorithm is what? A is in leading of A if A is rewritten as gamma A delta, where gamma is epsilon or any non-terminal, single non-terminal. And second is what? If A is in leading of B and A derives what? A is rewritten as B alpha, then A is also in leading of A. Okay. Similarly, for trailing, A is rewritten as gamma A delta, where delta can be epsilon or any non-terminal. Then this A is going to be put in the trailing of A. And if A is rewritten as alpha B and A is in trailing of B, then this A is going to be put in trailing of A. Now suppose we have this grammar, all these productions, we can compute leading and trailing of all the non-terminals like E. If we see, E is directly deriving what? E plus T. This is going to be in the leading of E. Again, E is providing T directly. E is rewritten as T and strict is present here. So this is also going to be kept in the leading of E. And same way we can find leading and trailing for all these non-terminals. Just like this, leading of F is what? Opening parenthesis and ID. Leading of T, asterisk, opening parenthesis and ID. Why? Just see. F is rewritten as opening parenthesis E and closing parenthesis. This is going to be in the leading of F. Only ID, definitely this is going to be the first terminal in the derivation. So ID is going to be put. T is rewritten as F. So all those symbols which are in leading of F are going to be in leading of T, including this asterisk. Okay. So leading of T, leading of E, plus asterisk opening parenthesis ID. Similarly, trailing of F, trailing of T, and trailing of E. Now, what exactly is the algorithm for construction of parsing table? Dollar gives precedence to A for all A in leading of S, that is a starting variable, start variable, and B takes precedence over dollar for all B in trailing of S, where S is the start symbol. Now, if you have the production like this, A is rewritten as x1, x2 till xn, then we have to perform a loop from I is equal to 1 to n minus 1. If xi and xi plus 1 are terminals, then we are having same precedence level. So xi is at the same precedence level of xi plus 1. Again, if I is less than equal to n minus 2 and these two are terminals, fine, and xi plus 1 is a non-terminal, then we set as xi is equal to xi plus 1. Like if suppose you are having this kind of production, then you are going to say that A is having same precedence level. Okay. If xi is a terminal and xi plus 1 is a non-terminal, suppose at xi position this is happening like this, xi and xi plus 1 in the RHS, then what you are going to say? For all A in leading of xi plus 1, this leading of A, set xi is less than A. Okay, so suppose here A is xi, so A is less than all leading of A. Fine. Next, if xi is a non-terminal, suppose like this, you are having suppose A, B. Okay. Then xi and xi plus 1. So this is a non-terminal, xi is a non-terminal and xi plus 1 is a terminal. Fine. Then for all A in trailing of xi, that is trailing of A will take precedence over xi plus 1, that is B. In the same way, we are going to construct the parsing table. Okay. So you can see here, suppose E is rewritten as AAB. Here one non-terminal is there between two terminal symbols. Then A is at the same precedence level of B. Suppose you are having this, A is rewritten as AB. Then A gives precedence to leading of B. Suppose this kind of production is there, A is rewritten as BA, then trailing of B takes precedence over or has greater precedence over A. In this way, you are going to compute the precedence relation between the symbols, between the terminals and construct the parsing table. So let us start. The first step in algorithm is what? About precedence with respect to this symbol dollar. So it talks about dollar is less than a for all a in leading of s. The grammar that we are considering is having e as the start symbol. So dollar will be less than leading of e, and we have computed leading of e as plus asterisk opening parenthesis id. You can see earlier we have computed this. So dollar will give precedence to plus asterisk opening parenthesis id, and b takes precedence over dollar for all b in trailing of s. Trailing of e contains what? Plus asterisk closing parenthesis and id. So these symbols will take precedence over dollar. So in the corresponding parsing table we are going to have this entry, that is plus takes precedence over dollar, asterisk takes precedence over dollar, closing parenthesis take precedence over dollar, id takes precedence over dollar. In the same way, dollar yields precedence to plus asterisk opening parenthesis and id. Fine. Next, if this is the production, f is rewritten as opening parenthesis followed by e and closing parenthesis. If you remember, two terminal symbols, in between there is a non-terminal symbol, then these two are having same precedence level. So opening parenthesis and closing parenthesis are at the same precedence level. Also consider this portion only. Then trailing of e will take precedence over this closing parenthesis, meaning what? Plus asterisk closing parenthesis and id will take precedence over this thing. Fine. And if we consider this portion, f is rewritten as only this portion. Fine. Then we are going to get opening parenthesis gives precedence to leading of e. That is, opening parenthesis gives precedence to plus asterisk closing parenthesis and id. So we have put that here again, this type of thing by the previous computation. Next, this production e is rewritten as e plus t. If we consider this only, then trailing of e takes precedence over plus, that is plus asterisk closing parenthesis id will take precedence over or has greater precedence over plus. And if we consider the second part, that is e is rewritten as e plus t, this part. So what happens? Plus will yield precedence to leading of t. This is plus yields precedence to asterisk opening parenthesis id. So in this way we have again incorporated the precedence level in the parsing table. Next, for asterisk, consider this portion. Trailing of t will take precedence over a star, that is asterisk opening parenthesis closing parenthesis, and id will take precedence over asterisk, and asterisk will give precedence to leading of f after considering this portion. Okay, so asterisk will yield precedence to opening parenthesis and id. So in this way we have constructed for asterisk the remaining part. Fine. Now, how operator precedence parsing algorithm works? Input for this algorithm was the grammar, the input string w, and the parsing table. We are going to set p to point to the first symbol of w, that is input string concatenated with dollar. Now we have to repeat forever For what? If dollar is on top of the stack and P points to dollar, then return. We have completed the successful parsing of the given input string. Otherwise, let A be the topmost terminal symbol on the stack and B be the symbol pointed to by P. Fine. P points to what? P points to the first symbol of the input string. Now, if A is having less precedence than B, or A is having equal precedence of B, then we have to perform shift, that is push B onto the stack and advance P to the next input symbol. So shifting is done when? If the top of the stack is having less precedence level or having equal precedence level than the current input symbol. Otherwise, if the topmost terminal symbol on the stack is having greater precedence level than the current input symbol, then we have to perform reduce. Repeat pop stack until the top of stack terminal is related by less than to the terminal most recently popped. This is going to be repeated and we are going to pop of the stack. Otherwise, error is going to be displayed. So in this way, this is an example of bottom up parser, that is we are going to save, we are going to reduce, we are going to put error message in case of error, and we are going to accept or get the success message when successful parsing is being completed. Okay. Now consider the same grammar and assume the this relation precedence relation. Let us work for the given string id plus id into id. Just compare. Stack is having on dollar and input is having w concatenated with this dollar. Now top of the stack is compared with this id dollar id. Just you can see here dollar id. So you are having dollar as less precedence over this id. Therefore what we have to do, we have to shift this. So id is shifted onto the top of the stack. Now id plus, if you compare id and plus, so id takes precedence over what? Plus. So what happens? Reduction is being done. So id is reduced. Okay. Now again dollar and plus, less precedence, so shifting is done. Plus less than id, shifting is done. id asterisk takes precedence over this, so reduction is done. Next plus asterisk, less precedence, shift. Asterisk id, asterisk is having less precedence than id, shift. Next id takes precedence over dollar, reduce. Again asterisk is having greater precedence than dollar, so we know this is representing what? Asterisk representing is e asterisk e, so reduction is done, only plus is left. Next this plus is having greater precedence than this and plus represents what? E plus e, so reduce by this symbol. Ultimately you are having this dollar and this dollar in the input string, so we conclude acceptance or successful parsing of the string. Thank you for watching.